Since 1971, our Next Guests organization has served pro athletes and their spouses, helping them maximize the positive impact they have on their spheres of influence and helping them achieve the healthiest possible transition out of the game. Their approach? They're a faith-based organization helping athletes find their identity in Jesus Christ rather than athletics. They're called Pro Athletes Outreach, or PAO, and we're delighted to welcome President Steve Stenstrom to the program. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. Really appreciate you having me.
Steve, there's a lot that PAO does, but first I want to talk about Football Sunday. What is Football Sunday?
Well, Football Sunday is an idea that's been recently brought to the forefront of our talks within PAO. During my 6 years playing in the NFL myself and ever since my retirement in 2001, the biggest talk of the year is always on Super Bowl Sunday, and everybody wants to talk about football that day. At Pro Athletes Outreach, we're connected to a ton of pro athletes, a lot of them NFL players and their families. And there's a huge story that doesn't often get talked about, which is the faith storyline within the NFL locker rooms that's going on. And so we're looking at having a collaborative effort with local churches all around the country and frankly around the world, if possible, to produce a 30-minute segment that churches will be able to use as an opportunity to tell the faith story of the NFL on Super Bowl Sunday. And we'll also produce a shorter version of 5 to 7 minutes in length that pastors around the country can use to tee up their weekly message or sermon.
Now, you also have a program called Coaches Time Out, which works with high school coaches. What is this program about?
Well, in about 1998, the pro athletes connected to PAO realized that there was collectively a group of people they wanted to thank and give back to, and that's high school coaches, each one having been tremendously impacted by a coach or many coaches along the way. And so Pro Athletes Outreach decided to offer weekend experiences for high school coaches and their spouse to get away, to be refueled, refreshed, recharged, and just encouraged to keep coaching and realize that the collective voice of high school coaches in America today is as significant as any voice around. And so we want to stand up and cheer for high school coaches, let people know how significant pro athletes realize they are, and hope to encourage them to keep pouring into our nation's youth.
Now, I understand PAO also has a resource called theincrease.org. Tell us about that.
The name alone comes from a Bible verse, John 3:30, in which John the Baptist declares, "I must decrease so Jesus can increase." And in our culture, we look to athletes so much and build them up so much, and celebrities in general, that oftentimes the athletes don't get to tell their own story. And the athletes we work with, oftentimes, they'd really prefer to be able to tell their decrease story so that they can tell the story of Jesus' increase in their life. And so the increase.org is really a virtual stadium, if you will, where people can go and watch the stories of some of our athletes. We release a new one on the first of every month, and so there's about 12 stories on there now. We've been around about a year, and we're going to keep adding new stories all the time. But currently we have pro football and pro baseball players up there, and I encourage people to go check it out.
Well, it's great work you're doing. Steve, thanks for joining us today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
For more on our discussion, you can find Pro Athletes Outreach at PAO.org or get inspired at theincrease.org.